Hi, and welcome to the Good Goobyes Funeral Myth-Busting podcast. On the show, you will hear us, your hosts, Simon, a funeral director, and Tina, an independent celebrant, chat about all things funerals, death, and dying to help you navigate the planning of your good goodbye for yourself or the people in your lives.
Sometimes we have funeral industry guests, and sometimes we just chat through funerals, death, and dying. We do this with kindness and sometimes humour. We're based in Devon in the UK, and we hope you enjoy the show ahead. Hello, welcome to Good Goobyes. This is Tina, and today I have Samantha with me from Aura Flights, which is a delight. And in a moment, she's going to introduce herself and tell us all about what this episode is going to entail. So, Samantha, it's lovely to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here as well. Nice to meet you, Tina.
It's a pleasure. So, tell us what Aura Flights does.
Oh, yeah, so my name is Samantha Richardson. I'm general manager here at Aura Flights. And essentially, we help families say goodbye by taking their loved ones' ashes to the edge of space, where they are scattered into the arms of the stratospheric winds. And they travel the globe for many, many, many months. Ultimately, the ashes will make their way back down towards the ground to become one with nature again. The flight or the launch vessel itself has cameras on board, so we record the flight and we provide our families with lots of digital video deliverables after the flight for them to be able to watch back many times over as well.
Samantha, there's probably a bit of science behind this, but I'm wondering, what made the founding fathers of your company think we want to take ashes into space? Was there a particular, desire to do that part of what you do?
What was actually there was a moment where our parent company is called Sent into Space, and that was founded in 2011. They have launched thousands of flights to near space. And there was a period at which they were garnering such impactful imagery and such very emotive imagery, really, from their current projects. One day one of the directors had suffered a loss in the family, and it got him thinking, do you know what? I'd love to be able to engineer a vessel that will allow us to scatter ashes in space. So it was a bit of a dreamy idea at the time. And then he sent, obviously, his engineers off with that project to innovate and engineer something that would be suitable. And 2 years later, we had our first iteration of a very intelligent and a very complex vessel that was ready to be ground tested. And by 2017, we launched Aura Flights with our very first vessel. And since then, we've done over 350 flights. And that was just for Aura alone. So we're very proud of the vessel. It's one of the most complex vessels that we currently engineer. So it's a bit of a feat of engineering that we're very proud of.
And a lot of our listeners and the people they love and might be thinking about this for themselves, they might be real science folks. There might be engineers out there thinking, oh, this sounds quite exciting. Lots of people get very very energized and very kind of into this, don't they? There are lots of geeks and nerds, they won't mind me calling them that, out there, who just love all this sort of thing. So is there a name of the vessel? Has it got a name?
Launch craft, launch vessel.
Yeah.
It's typically what we call it. We do have the odd words that we call them, we abbreviate them internally. We might call it a mech or a rig, just very quickly, but it's a launch craft or a launch vessel.
So you haven't called it Bob or Samantha or Jane or anything now? So
we don't. Well, I certainly don't. Me and my team don't. Maybe the engineering team do. They have a few little cheeky names for them, but no. And if they did, they're probably quite long-winded. But yeah, they're just launch crafts or launch vessels, really.
Yeah, I was just imagining that Bob could take me to outer space, you see. So I'm liking the idea of naming the vessel, but that's what I'm like, really, Samantha.
The name on the vessel at the time is the name of the passenger that's going on their final
Ah,
journey. So,
perfect.
we do like to call the vessel that is relevant to the passenger going on their journey by that name.
Now that is very special. So when people are thinking about this, and we've all seen space movies, is it like that? We're going to the edge of space like we'd see in a sci-fi movie?
There's no warp speed or cryopods involved in anything that we do, I will say that. But we do reach a certain altitude. We reach 30 to 35 kilometers into the stratosphere for each of our flights, not necessarily going beyond 50 kilometers into the stratosphere, purely and simply because we are able to achieve such stunning imagery and very impactful imagery for the families. We don't need to go any higher to improve on that. So, and if we were to increase our altitude, that would obviously incur greater cost, and that isn't a cost that we would want to
Mhm.
pass on to our families. So yeah, it seems quite sci-fi. The technology is very real. Um, you know, the the family experience is very real. Um, and the two very juxtaposed, I suppose, because you have the cold science behind the launch craft. It's very absolute, it's very precise, it's very rigid, um, very functional and unemotional. And then on the opposing end, you have the family experience. You have a deep and personal um, experience for the family that is very emotional and very fragile. And then, we have Aura Flights, myself and my team that sit in that space in the middle, um, that we mold this service into, a science that can be quite harsh, but is as it should be functional and absolute, with a family experience that is very, very gentle and beautiful. So, it is an interesting experience for myself and my team to work with both those opposing points at play. But of course, the important thing, I sometimes like to liken it to the ballroom dance, the quick step. I don't know whether you know this, where the legs are going 10 to the dozen, they're really, really fast, they're reacting. And it's tiring and exhausting. There is a lot going on. And then you have the upper body that is calm and serene, beautiful, not under tension, um,
And
and
just
looks
looks like it's
beautiful.
gliding,
Just
yeah.
gliding, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I liken those two halves to the two areas that our team play with. So we have, the lower body is Aura Flights, because there is a lot going on in order to conduct one of these launches. There is a lot to do and a lot at play. And, we want the family experience to be the upper body of the quick step, for it to
Yeah,
be
that they just
beautiful,
see
for it to
that.
be gentle,
Yeah.
and for it to be at peace.
Yeah. I'm loving what you're saying because I'm imagining this exactly as it is. And I'm thinking that there are people out there who are real adventurers, in their lives. They may have traveled extensively. And even if they haven't physically traveled, in their minds, many people travel through their reading. Now, I know lots of friends who constantly look at the night sky. Maybe you're a stargazer, and there's something quite beautiful about the fact that you could take your dream or your adventure to the almost nth degree and be in space, that your remains could be in space. I mean, that is just an amazing thought. And the visuals that any of us might see when we see footage from space stations and things, it just looks incredible, doesn't it? Is that when the release happens, is that the kind of pictures that families get?
It is, absolutely. There's a lot that we talk through with our families because there's a lot about the technology and the launch side of what we do that is unknown. Many of our families like to know all about it. They like all of the details, particularly as you say, if we have family members that were, perhaps engineers as a profession, maybe they worked in the space industry, maybe they were pilots. We have many family members that the family are in those professions, but the passenger going on the flight wasn't. So there's lots of stories coming in. But the flight itself is very interesting. We reach altitudes, as I've said, of 35 kilometers into the stratosphere. The ashes are released in a beautiful cascade and they're swept up. The technology behind this allows that to happen. So our launch craft knows where it is in space at any one time. It knows the altitude that it has reached. The onboard computer systems know this and then will open the vessel to allow the ashes to be released. There are telemetry systems on board. We, of course, have the camera systems on board. And as you've just said, there's the moment of scatter at the top of the flight is recorded. And the flight upwards and all of the footage is recorded. And we utilize that footage to create a beautiful personalized video edit for the family. We will provide them with still images of the moment of the scatter and other items. But within the video, they can personalize this with video clips and photos of the family, of their loved one. We do also offer the family the opportunity to have an image of the passenger going on their flight front and center on the exterior of the launch craft so that it's visible from the cameras. And that's really one that our family members have connected with. They really, really enjoy that. Just because they can watch the video and see their loved one ascending on their journey.
Yeah. And are they with you, on the day of the flight, or are they elsewhere? How does it happen in that way? Where are they gathered when it happens?
Well, I think certainly at this point, it's probably important for me to say the launch itself, as we've already mentioned, there are many, many variables at play. And of course, we garner Civil Aviation Authority permissions for every single one of our flights. And what we do with each of our families is I will arrange with them what we call a launch window. That launch window is 4 weeks in length. So within that 4-week period, their family, or the passenger's flight will be conducted.
Yeah.
We are used to working with the unpredictability and the volatile nature of the stratospheric conditions. Our family members, not so much. So it's very difficult when our flight is green lit and ready to go, and then 12 hours later, we have to postpone that launch. That is something that we are used to. And it's very difficult to be able to put a family member in a position where they've taken a day off work, or 20 family members have taken a day off work to be prepared for a day that's been organised for the launch when the launch has to be postponed. That's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And it makes a process. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I can imagine instead then that a family commission a flight, their person's going to have their journey. You give them this window of time, which I completely understand because I've gone up in a hot air balloon and it got postponed so many times because of the elements, and we can't control nature. So although the hot air balloon company kept giving us dates, it really wasn't their fault that these were being moved due to elements beyond their control. So from that point of view, I understand. So if I was a celebrant conducting something for a family who had an Aura flight, I guess they could have a ceremony and then they could watch the footage together. You could have an occasion with or without somebody like me, but you could certainly come together over drinks or somewhere special and just basically say, let's watch our dad's flight, or let's watch the video. And I could see that would be the coming together of the family once the flight's been commissioned. I hear what you're saying.
You're absolutely right. And we do find that the majority of our families that we speak to, that is what they want. Some are very private and they don't want it to be displayed that way. But of course, that is absolutely their choice. But if we speak with the families and we garner all of the information that we need to be able to make this journey peaceful for them, so they can tell us if they have a planned celebration on a particular date, then I can make sure that I can schedule the launch and the launch window, which again, as I mentioned, is 4 weeks long, so that I give us enough time to be able to have the flight conducted and to be able to provide them with all of the post-launch deliverables after the flight. And that tends to work really, really well.
And in that heartfelt way that your person's becoming stardust, there's an element of magic to this, isn't there? What do families tell you about that side of things? How does that feel for them?
Yeah, it's very interesting because many of them, they like the connection with a space that isn't a specific location. They like the idea or the symbolism of a continuing journey. Something that in sometimes, they say something that's non-traditional. They don't want something that's necessarily traditional. They want to find, because I do speak to many families where the flight is for a passenger that had no hobby in aerospace or in flight or in travel. Perhaps they were performers, or perhaps they were an office worker of some kind. They connected with what we were able to give them in terms of the freedom of space. Something that's very open, very vast, something that will just continue on. And a lot of them say, I like the fact that I can look up into the sky and know that I'm connected with them somehow. I can even just walk around wherever I am in the world and know that I can talk to them, that I can have a conversation with them, and know that the essence of their loved one is there. So yeah, that I think for me, listening to those kinds of comments is really quite special.
Yeah, it sounds incredibly special because people who believe that we are all energy and energy never fully dissipates. So somehow we will be energy somewhere, somehow. People who have that belief, it really fits with this idea that, space is so infinite, isn't it? That feeling of it being all, your person is all around you everywhere. It's kind of a comforting feeling for lots of people, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think so. And in reality, we are sending the essence of human nature into to the near space for them to be able to travel the globe many times over. Ultimately, the journey of the passenger will make their way down towards the ground again. They'll pass down through the stratosphere, through the troposphere. They'll pass through the weather systems. The particulates of the ash can perhaps nucleate with the raindrops and snowflakes and make their way back down towards the ground and becoming one with nature again. And these are all symbolic ideas that do very much connect with the families that find us. We completely understand that what we offer isn't for everyone, but I think it's important for people to just come and have a chat, have a think about something, think about is does it fit the personality of their loved one? It's really important for them to feel the freedom to feel informed and to understand what's out there for them, so that they can feel the truth through the personality of the person that they feel would be taking this journey.
And I think there's going to be more and more people with ashes who haven't yet decided what to do with them. With an increase in direct cremation and unattended funerals, goodbyes are changing. And I think that if you're listening to this and thinking, actually, I have got ashes, and maybe this is something that would work for us as a family to create closure and a bit of a goodbye, because a lot of people aren't getting that closure, Samantha. I have a concern as a celebrant about the way that society is moving away from having some closure after a death. You know, we're received into this world and there's usually a great celebration on our arrival. It would be quite nice to think there's something when we go. So yeah, this could exactly be the right thing for a certain family, couldn't it? Do you get unusual requests or anything that sticks in your mind?
I suppose in terms of an unusual request, that would be perhaps having the pleasure of just understanding more about the stories of people that have found us. Because the service that we offer, you know, is beautiful technology that allows for, you know, a gentle human offering. And you know, the stories, the people that find us, they are families with children, you know, anywhere from 2 to 10 years old that have found us, and that child had a love for space or for travel. You know, very, very difficult stories to hear, and that you can, you know, really relate to and connect with, and know that you're offering these families the opportunity to find peace and closure to all the ages, in, you know, all the ages, all the upwards to the elderly. And you know, they are people that connect with us. We have musicians. You know, we had a family that, as you say, they had the ashes on the mantle for 13 years. They could not find what to do with their son's ashes. Until they found us. They connected with us and then thought, that's it, that's what I'm going to do. And you know, for us to be part of that journey was just really heartwarming for us. And you know, there's so many stories like this, and each and every story is incredibly emotive and incredibly powerful as a standalone story. But it is, I do work with an amazing team, my team here at Aura Flights, that it's very important that we allow our families the space to discuss, are we what they're looking for? Do we fit the personality of their loved one? And we love to hear those stories. And they love to tell us those stories. And we're happy to hear. We're happy to listen.
That sounds really fantastic. I'm going to make sure for our listeners that all the details are in our show notes, Samantha. So if there's anything you want our listeners to be able to access, we'll certainly pop that in there for them so they've got links and they can find their way to you. What about yourself then? Have you considered going up into space after your demise, whenever that might be?
I'm going to be completely honest and say I don't know. I don't know. I know that it's something that I think at the time will need to be something that will connect me probably to something that's bigger than myself. But this is a discussion that I need to have and a thought process that I need to have. I think it's because I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, and I think that's so common. I love your honesty in that, because I think
that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's okay. And I change my mind all the time. A little while ago, I wanted a Viking funeral, which I don't think my local county council would accept that to happen on the River Exe. But that was my thought process. I thought that'd be quite nice. And then I've really toyed quite seriously with going up in a firework at some point. But yeah, I'm a bit like you. Ideas come into my mind and I think, well, that would be quite exciting. So who knows where we will all be, but I think it's very natural to maybe not be there yet. If you're our listeners, this can be, or you might be listening to this and think, I'm going to write that in my will, because I definitely am interested in this for myself. So it's an exploration, which I think is what's great about all the options. There are so many more options than people understand. And I guess that's the whole aim of this conversation and all the conversations we have on the podcast, is to just help people understand the variety of choice. There is so much choice. Yeah.
There is indeed, absolutely. And I think it's important to be okay with that and to know that there is so many more ideas and so many options, innovative and modern. Um, I know we have a whole plethora from all different areas for us to be able to think about and utilize for as a celebration. I'm having people come to us that are looking to celebrate their own life as and when. They're very fit and healthy, and they're coming to us excited, knowing that they found something that they're excited about, which is
Yeah.
really quite strange, when you're having a conversation that's
Yeah.
so excited about a flight for themselves when the time comes. They're like, I'm so excited. I want to start my journey now. And it's really quite, I'm so happy for them, but it's a strange thing to say.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I've certainly been participated in at least 3 or 4 conversations in the last year, which have been with the people whose funerals or events have been planned, and they have been participating in that. So I think that's becoming more and more a way forward for people. So yes, this is an interesting time that we will find ourselves in.
It is
Before we
indeed.
leave you, Samantha, is there anything extra you wanted to say that you haven't had the chance to yet?
Not sure. I mean, there are so many things that are in my discussions with our family members. Um, there are so many important things to discuss, particularly in terms of our service and its passive impact on the environment. I think that's an important thing because it's important to our families.
Oh, yes, actually, I
It's,
was going to ask you about environmental
yeah.
impacts. I'm so glad you mentioned it. So a passive impact, really.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from the launch site itself, it's very passive. It's very conscientiously thought through from the beginning right to the very end of the family receiving the deliverables. But in terms of the equipment that we use, we 3D print all of our own launch vessels. They're sturdy but very light. We utilize 3D printing substance that's called PLA, which is, plant sourced. We reuse and recycle safely to the balloons that we use that are custom made from a very fine, natural, very stretchy latex that is custom made to burst in strips while it stays attached to the neck of the balloon and then continues to come back down to the ground with all of the equipment. There is no littering of any kind, no rockets or littering going on in at the edge of space from any of the Orpha launches. Everything is collected after every single launch. And the balloon, if any small pieces do break away and touch down to the ground, they break down at the rate of an oak leaf. So
Oh,
they are
that's so good to know.
biodegradable.
Yeah.
So every part of the process is thought through and is very passive, which I think is important for our families to hear.
Yeah, lots of people are leaning into the green credentials of planning their funerals and their events after a death, really. So I'm so glad you mentioned it. Thanks, Samantha. It's been joyful to find out about all of this. I mean, who knows what we'll be talking about in 50 years' time? We could have things on the moon. Who knows? We just don't know, do we?
Oh,
But
I can bore you for hours and hours and hours and more on all of the technology behind what we do. It is fascinating, but we are developing and pushing new boundaries all the time. So watch this space.
I love that you said, watch this space. Look at that. She's a star. Thank you, Samantha. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Good Goodbyes.
Pleasure, Tina. You take care.
Thanks for listening to Good Goodbyes. We hope you found it helpful and informative. Please do leave us feedback, other topic suggestions, and subscribe for a regular listen and like and share if it all helps the show.
We're always interested to know what topics you like us to talk about, so do reach out to us if you have any ideas. If any topic leaves you thinking you need additional help or support, please do seek out professional advice. Take care and be kind to one another.